Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, we get the right guests and ask them all the relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We're live tonight. The much talked about deadline for SIM re-registration has been extended again for another 2 months. Tonight, we break down the issues and find out where will this leave us. We'll also look at the potential clash of interest between two important state institutions, the NCA and the NIA. I have a big panel. Stay with us. Welcome back. So, Minister of Communication Selorm over the weekend addressed a press conference where she extended the deadline, which initially had been in March 2022 and had been shifted to July 2022, 31st July, by another 2 months. Now it's 30th September, by which time she expects those who want to register their SIMs to have done so. There's also a new app that, if you are watching this on Tuesday, should be out, which you can use to re-register your SIM at a cost of 5 Ghana cedis. Those are the two main highlights from a press conference, but there are lots of other issues to be resolved. Some are questioning the legality of the 5 cedis. Some are asking if we even need a deadline at all. But there's a much bigger issue of the potential clash between the system the NCA is using to collect your data and the verification that must be done with the NIA, which is the legal entity that is creating the national database. I have a panel in studio and some will join us virtually to look at all of this. Selorm Branttie is the Vice President of Imani. He's the one who broke the story in January 2022 about the potential clash of interest between the NCA and the NIA. Selorm, great to have you.
Thank you, Bernard.
I didn't know you were also a journalist because as of January, you put something on your Facebook page about the letter Mr. Atefa wrote, and a lot of challenges have emerged since that. So we'll delve into that. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Maximus Ametorgoh is a technology analyst. His daytime job is with Pop Out, but he does a lot of things. Maximus, thanks for joining us as well.
Pleasure, Bernard.
We'll be joined by engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbey later on. He'll join us virtually. He is the chief executive of the Chamber of Telecommunications. And hopefully, a representative of the NCA would also join us if all plans are to go through. Let me start with Maximus. I heard you over the weekend say, even though the extension is welcome, we don't even need a deadline, because prior to the weekend, the main discussion on the media was whether Minister Selorm would extend the deadline. And in fact, a week prior to this, she had said there would be no further extensions.
Right.
So when we heard on Sunday that the deadline had been extended for re-registration to end of September, some people were happy. But you really think there's no point in deadlines at all? Can you explain yourself?
Yeah, so what happened was that I was asked why, if there was a need for even deadline, and that the minister wasn't going to change her mind. So, and then if we are going to use a primary card to register SIM cards, for which a lot of people don't have access to, giving deadlines will not help the issue. You want to identify people who use SIM cards. SIM cards are economic assets. People used to run their businesses and their lifestyle to communicate with people and the rest. It's not just a chip inside a device. So if you want to register the people, you must as well make it so convenient that everybody can have their SIM cards registered, so that the government can identify people who make calls and receive calls or do whatever services that they are on the telecom infrastructure. Now, the deadline you are giving doesn't favor NCA to deliver the cards, the millions of cards needed by millions of people who have not even registered or don't have the card. And you are even using the telecom customer experience centers and other complementary centers for the registrations, which are not even geographically evenly distributed. So people can't access those centers. And then if you get the Ghana card, you are going to look for the next place to even do your SIM card registration and the rest. This is inconvenience that you are creating. So I said that even technology as a product of convenience, you don't use inconvenience to sell it. So we don't need a deadline. You should just extend it so as many people as can register their SIM card. Then you do it.
But what about the concern that because there is fraud being perpetrated with unregistered SIM cards, and also the fact that when deadlines are announced, people tend to flock the centers. You probably need a deadline like a prophylaxis of some sort. once people know that there's a deadline coming, they would do the needful. But once there's no deadline, they relax. The evidence that they showed, and I think Mr. Tifa also said the same, that as soon as the March deadline was extended to July, people stopped going to the centers. So you needed to create some urgency. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for me, if everybody had Ghana card and you are creating a deadline even for 2 months registration, I don't have a problem with it. They don't have the primary card that they need to register it. So if you do the extension, even to maybe January, and you say, okay, we are going to lock up some services on the SIM card so that you fully register before you can access maybe data services, then it makes sense. But don't black out the SIM cards. That's why I said we don't need the what do you call it, the deadline. It will not work. And then that 30th September, we'll still extend it.
The numbers she gave are interesting. 42.1 million voice SIMs as of 20th July. Registrations as of the same day, 25 million, that's 60%. Unregistered, 16 million. These are voice. And then she spoke about re-registrations or stage 2, stage 1 registration, 25 million, stage 2, unregistered, 16. Stage 2, 16 million registered, unregistered, 26 million. And then she spoke about the app and everything else. The other point she makes during the press briefing was that from the end of this month, there would be sanctions for not going through the process of registration, which include limited use of your data SIM. Is that something you understand? And because some people advocated that instead of blocking the SIMs entirely, you sort of restrict access to it until the people do the needful.
So I stated that even on my Facebook on Friday, right? But looking at what the limitations that NIA has, I think that they need to extend that. This month will not work. People will not enjoy the kind of services they are getting on telecom services. They don't have the card to register. That is the problem. They don't have the card to register. How do you make sure they get the card so they can register? And how do you even make sure that even at the NIA centers where the cards are, you set up maybe registration centers there. So when I get my card, immediately I can register. I link it to my Ghana, my SIM card, and then you get that solved. But if you have millions of people, I think about 60 million people haven't done the second stage of the registration. Do you mean you are going to deactivate all the 60 million people in August? And they're using it for Momo. You want to collect Momo. They want to use it for call. You are saying if you see something, say something. All those campaigns that you are running, you want to deactivate all those SIM cards.
So you don't think the September 30 is realistic?
It's not realistic. It will not work.
60 million people are too many.
Yes.
Or 60 million, not people, but cards.
That's the second stage, unregistered people. The first stage is even more than that.
The first stage is 25.
Yes.
No, unregistered SIMs is 16.8 million.
Right.
And the second stage is 26 million.
Yes.
So first stage is 16, second stage is 26.
Exactly. How do you make sure all those people are fully registered within 2 months?
So the deadline for it is a red herring. It will not wash.
Exactly.
Let's get through the other points. So self-service app will be launched tomorrow, Tuesday, 5 cedi charge. Would that not add to the pace with which people register?
Then I think it doesn't make sense to charge people 5 cedis to use an app. The cost of cybercrime in Ghana is in millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in Ghana. So why can't government spend some small money to create a free app? The telcos have already done theirs. So why can't you do the same thing? They are not charging anything for it. So why are you going to charge 5 cedis to gate off people to solve a problem for you, government? It's a national security problem you want to solve, but you want people to pay to solve it for you.
We spoke to one of the communication officials of the NCA on radio this evening, Mr. Kwame Jan. I just wanted to hear his reason, the answer to the question you are asking.
Right.
Just a couple of minutes soundbite.
Well, I'm hoping not, especially when you think of the convenience of you being at home, spending just 5 cedis, plus what you may have to go through in even driving a car from your house to the junction to go register. So just the convenience you are paying for, to put this in other ways. So essentially, I'm saying that, I heard you talk about what the mobile money agents were talking about, on the fact that if someone has multiple SIMs, then it's more cost. But the point is that the MNO centers are still open. You can still walk through there and have yourself registered. There are agents whom, sadly, after people have stopped showing up, they've had to lay some of them off because when they employ lots of people to go register, people don't even show up any longer. They are still out there registering people, and it's still for free.
I see.
So the option, it's only an option given. In fact, I would have had a big problem personally with it if we said the only thing that you can do now is the app.
I see.
But we are saying that no, the app is only an additional.
No, but for the sake of convenience and the fact that you are not making us register to punish us, if I could register in the comfort of my home and it is free, I'm sure a lot more people would have commended you for this. But in the meantime, who takes that money? Where does that money go? Does it go to the NCA or it goes to the consolidated fund? Where does it go?
The money goes to the app developers.
The money goes where?
To those who built and are maintaining the app. It doesn't go to the MCA.
So who are those people? Who are the builders of the app?
So the same folks that build the app that the agents of the MNOs are using.
So I presume you don't have their name of head.
Well, I mean, something I could fetch, but I just don't find it to be too relevant in this game of things, except if there's some other question that makes that a key point. Aside the fact that, of course, I mean, what we are advocating for, how to make it free so you can have more people to register.
Well, I think people actually are interested in knowing who they are, but that's fine. Back to the issue about the Ghana card and other forms of IDs. You mentioned the law. There are two laws in question now. There's a LI 2006, and then there's a LI 2111. The LI 2111 is what really deals with the NIA's registration, everything. And the LI 2006 is what deals really with the registration of SIM cards. Section 2.
So
yes.
Selorm, you have the benefits of having a machine in front of you. I don't. So I'm not going to go specifics to the law. But what I'm telling you is this. The NIA Act, which you are using to register now, it's a much more newer law. Can you hear me, Selorm?
No, but no, it doesn't really work that way because there's a specific law and there's a general law. So in matters of specificity, you deal with the specific law and not the law that is general.
Selorm, and I'm saying that I'm still on, right?
Yes, you're on.
So I'm saying that the law that is being used now.
So that was Kwame Jan speaking to Selorm Adonu, trying to explain. He says the money being charged is not going to the consolidated fund, it's not going to the ministry, it's going to an unnamed company that is developing the app. He also says the app is not compulsory. You can still go to the center to register. Should that put the matter to rest?
No.
It shouldn't.
It should be free. You see, the inconvenience of paying 5 cedis to go and register, that's why you have an app, so that the app will make room for that. You use the app to solve that inconvenience problem, but not pay for it. That's why we don't go to post office to go and post letters. We just send an email. It's the same thing. You buy data, which is cheaper, to send the same letter via emails. So you don't go and buy paper and write ink and then buy stamp on it. It's less expensive than that. So this one is free. It's just data you are entering into a system with, maybe you buy a bigger server size. It's the same thing. So why are you charging per SIM registration? 5 cedis. So if you have 4 SIM cards times 5.
So if you have said 3 things. Number 1, we don't need a deadline.
Yes.
It should be a rolling registration.
Exactly.
Number 2, we don't need to be charged. Number 3, you've also said people should not be barred from using the card, even if they're not registered, because they are SIMs, because the SIM is at the center of everything.
Right.
Let me come to Selorm. I've heard you say, and I've read you say, all of this noise we are making could actually even be just phase 1 of a much bigger challenge. That all of this hula baloo is about data capture. The real issue has to do with the syncing or the verification, which could lead to a bigger problem. Do you care to explain?
Yeah, so, this exercise, which is being spearheaded by the communications minister, is probably her biggest project and her biggest legacy for the full tenure of a possible 8 years of office. And from all indications, it is also heading to be one of the biggest monumental failures in project management in this country. Firstly, because there have been so many arbitrary assumptions that are really far at variance with what really persists on the ground. First of all, being the vision and the policy that is encompassing this whole activity, as well as even the methodology that is being used to implement this SIM re-registration, I'll put it in quotes, exercise. And I'll say this because from the very first principle, the Ghanaians' digital identity, which is incorporated in their ownership of the SIM card, encompasses us having used different legal identification, forms of identification that exist, some of which are even legal in the 186 plus countries and territories in the world, like our passport, which is universal. It then becomes very shocking that I can use my passport to verify my identity in Greenland, but I can't use it to verify my identity for my digital identity in my own home country, Ghana. Let's go beyond that and look at the reason why we are trying.
But I'm sure you know that's the law. That's the law we've passed.
Yes, and it's a very defective
Our
law.
parliament passed that law that we should, the passport, the Ghana card is the main identification system.
For whatever purposes it is supposed to achieve, let's even assume that. Shoehorning this thing into the whole SIM card re-registration activity then creates a lot of problems. First of all, we have 4 major entities that have our biometric data. We have the SNITs, we have the Passport Office, we have DVLA, and then the Voters ID. All of them have our biometric data. And all of them from fingerprint scanners. They used methodology that is at least to the most minimum point ISO compliant. When I say ISO compliant, I'm talking about international standards organizations, methodologies that have been codified and certified, along which you can capture fingerprint data. And then we come to this Ghana Card app, which is also supposed to take identical biometric data.
Not Ghana Card app, SIM card.
Sorry, the SIM card
SIM
registration.
But the Ghana Card people use the ISO certified system. Yes.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Etifua and anybody who is an ambassador of the NI would have stated, and if you go onto their website, I think recently they even had some certification on biometrics that they are the only, they are the second entity to have it in the whole of Africa.
Yeah.
With regards to personal data encryption, etc., etc.
Right.
And kudos to the NIA for taking those steps, because it shows that they are a mature organization that knows what they intend to do and have very clear ideas of how to execute it. However, when you come to this other aspect, where there are so many questions, even regarding which entity has developed this Ghana card, this SIM registration platform, I raised questions, I remember in January or February, about who was behind that entity. I raised questions about the track record of the developers of that platform. And the very next day or 2 days later, after I had taken screenshots and put out on social media, they hurriedly went onto the Google Play platform and changed some of those details. For an individual to take down a so-called statutory activity, which has very far, reaching, effects on our digital identity. For an individual to take a matter of 2 hours to disassemble the whole thing to find out how ridiculous the situation was for me very, 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 very worrying. It tells you that anyone with the right cyber security credentials could actually have gone in there and done quite so many things. But let's leave that aside. Right now, we say, if you go onto the app that the app that is used to register these SIM cards, if you go onto that app, you realize that NCA says they own the app, or on the Google Play Store, NCA owns the app. Tomorrow, when this app is released, we would like to know, as citizens of Ghana, whether it is NCA that developed that app. And if NCA developed that app, is NCA the one responsible for maintaining that app? Is NCA responsible for handling the data that goes into that app? Is NCA the one responsible for storage of data on that app? And if there is a third party involved, what legal by what legal mandate does that third party have to store the biometric data that is being captured for all citizens who have a digital identity tied to their SIM card, which is the primary source of your digital identity or your ability to connect in this country, which is in the year 2022 a basic human right. Yeah. And if that entity is the one connecting our digital identity with our biometric identity, we need to know by what kind of framework of authority this is being done. That is the first issue. The second issue is this. This app is supposed to use your phone camera to capture your fingerprints and then transmit it. And for anybody who has ever dabbled in any level of IT security, this is one of the most ridiculous presumptions you can make in running an activity such as this. Firstly, because why did I make mention of the first four forms of identity? What happened when we were going for our voters registration? We used our fingers and we used them on fingerprint scanners. Yes. This is because the data that is captured, your fingerprint data that is captured on the fingerprint scanners, use certain algorithms, use certain ways of capturing that data, use certain ways of encrypting that data, encoding it and storing it in a particular database, for which in future you can just go and use another identical standards-based fingerprint scanner to verify. That is why when you, for those who have traveled before, those who have voted before, you would realize, or those who have even gone to the bank to do something after 1st of July, you would realize that if they are checking your identity, you would always have to scan your fingerprints on a device, because it takes the hardware to check certain ridges on your finger to be able to detect the information and match it to the information on the database. Now we have a situation where everybody who is using any phone with a camera, from an Infinix or a Techno that is 5 years old to the latest iPhone 13 Pro Max or S22 Ultra or whichever super phone there is today, are going to use cameras of different calibrations and qualities, from cameras that are 1 megapixel to cameras that are 48 megapixel. And what that means is that you are going to have a whole raft of data. Let me give you an example. It's like you being given an olonka of Gary and you saying that you are going to sort them by grain size manually with your hands before you now put it into a system.
Is it that serious?
It is that serious, because the information that is going to be captured by the hand, first of all, what shows that if the fingerprints that I took or I'm taking with my phone is the fingerprints of my son or my grandmother?
Exactly.
Point one.
You're saying the camera isn't detailed enough to look at the creases on the finger, which the original scanner does. So
now this is the beautiful thing. Even if the camera can do that, the format in which that data is being captured is not in a format that is readable by NIA's platform.
Which is where we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll come to why the NIA expressed concern last year about this, which information you put out. We'll hear what the NIA boss said to me on Thursday when I interviewed him. We'll speak to Kenneth Ashigbey of the Chamber of Telcos as to what they make of all of this, all within the next 30 minutes. Stay with us.
This is so fine. We could say people are last-minute people, but obviously another government agency is making your work difficult, obviously, because basically they stampede the office because 31st March is approaching. The announcement that it's been extended makes people feel it's not such a big problem. Yes, we can say Ghanaians should have just organized themselves and come 10 a day, but it's very clear that these are external agency deadlines putting a certain level of pressure on your system. So you can be frustrated with the people, but can't you also have a conversation with people like NCA and the other telcos and say, guys, spread this thing over 2 years. We are not going anywhere. We've built permanent offices in each district. Why haven't you, or okay, let me not say why haven't you, have you tried to do that too?
There's been continuous interagency cooperation and conversations to ensure that the process is smooth. We have to be responsible and responsive to the interests and demands of the public. We have done all the necessary engagements, but each agency has a statutory mandate to perform. For NIA, ours is to do mass registration. We've done it. Ours is to establish permanent regional and district offices to provide opportunities for continuous registration. We've done that, and they are working since the 3rd of November. Ours is to conduct registration of Ghanaians in the diaspora. We're planning for that, and Ghanaians under the age of 15, in order that they can all access the services and get the benefits of the Ghana card. We're doing that. Other agencies, such as SNIT, NHIA, GRA, have plugged into the NIA system seamlessly, noiselessly, and smoothly. We have to remember that. You didn't have to struggle in any way to get the SIM card, the SNIT or NHIA or any of those. Opportunities exist for other institutions to be onboarded in a manner that is a little different. But there are other institutions that are also, given the peculiarities of their mandate, the nature of the impelling need that they have. For example, NCA, to register SIM cards within a certain period in order to control the kind of crimes and issues that they are facing with, that they set their deadlines, cognizant of NIA's registration statistics and NIA's delivery capacity. In our case, we cannot be expected, and we're not designed to register all Ghanaians by a certain deadline. It is like having a maternity ward. You go there as and when. Now, the mass registration was to take off a critical chunk. We've done so. The remainder can be done gradually through the offices, and that's what our scheme permits. Otherwise, it would be like expecting a maiden to have a baby every 3 months.
But
that's
does the NCA know
what
you are saying? Because what you said is essentially that SNIT did this, there was no wahala. NHI did this, there was no wahala. Why is it that when it comes to NCA and SIM cards, all of a sudden,
So that was my interview with Professor Kenneth Ashigbey on 21st of July. So that was 2 Thursdays ago. Maximus, he seems to be corroborating your point.
Exactly.
But he's suggesting that we did this with NHI, it was okay. SNIT, it was okay as well.
The banks.
So he's indirectly pointing to this, although he says we don't have any problem with these guys.
Yes.
But it looks like he has a problem with them. But
Exactly.
he's not saying it.
Yes. But the issue is that I use my phone number to register the Ghana card. And then now you want me to use the Ghana card to register the phone number again. It doesn't make sense.
What do you mean?
Cyclical redundancy.
You use the phone number. What do you mean?
Yes, when you are doing your Ghana card registration, there's a column for phone number.
Yes.
You entered that.
Yes.
So it means that you owned that number. It means that when you are giving the card, all the details you provided are legitimate and correct.
Oh, okay.
Right? So now you say the card I've gotten from them, I should use it to authenticate the same number I have on the phone.
Wow. But okay, what if the assumption is that when I was registered, I used my mother's number?
No, of course.
So now they want to be sure the number I gave is mine.
Yeah, but the thing is that people change SIM cards. The SIM cards are not locked on in devices and the rest. Unlike like the CDMA technology where you can lock a SIM card to a device, to a network. So it means that the number doesn't change. You can't replace.
So you are saying that they already have my... If they have my Ghana card,
yes,
of which they've given out almost 16 million,
yes,
it means they have 16 million registered
phone
SIMs.
numbers. Yes,
phone numbers
already to a name, to a person. The name of the person has a location, occupation, their mother's name, father's name. All those data sets are already there.
Hey.
So the phone number I used, like I said on another platform, use it as an index phone number so that you link all my other numbers to the same number. Right, so it becomes easy. I don't need to go and.
So that's if they hadn't collected other phone numbers, then
yes,
they can say let's merge other numbers.
Exactly.
So you are saying this data collection is not really necessary.
It's useless, really.
Seriously,
yes.
Is that what you think too?
Yeah. So Bernard, like I was saying earlier, you see all these things that you are going to collect with the app. Those, in fact, all the data that people have queued to collect, and all the data that we are going to collect with the app that's going to be released tomorrow. There are so many loopholes And there are so many problems with that data because, first of all, like I said, the security of that data is questionable. The track record of the entity that created this app is questionable. The app is now only available on Android and not even on iOS. So you are even talking about restricting its access digitally. And for a Ministry of Communication that insists that communication is supposed to bring people together in the 21st century under a digital umbrella, we are already excluding people from a critical national exercise determined to determine their digital identity. And if you even go beyond all of that, all the data that I'm saying that we are collecting, we cannot use the NIS platform, the NIS, the National Identification System database, that the NIS is running, for which we are being forced to get a Ghana card to register our SIM cards for. In fact, we cannot verify that database and we cannot synchronize it. The reason is because, like I said earlier, the format in which you are going to use your phone to capture that information, and the format in which that information is going to be stored, and the format in which the data, which your fingerprint data is going to be interpreted in, is not the same format that the NIS uses to interpret biometric data. So I'll give you a very simple way to figure it out. It is like you capturing my name in Hebrew, and then saying that a Japanese person should read my name.
Hey.
It is not.
So even though it's my name, it doesn't make any sense to a Japanese.
It doesn't make any sense because the two systems are not proper. And the reason why this is happening is because of very poor stakeholder management by the minister. And I'll put the blame squarely on the minister's head for this whole farce, for this whole waste of people's time, for this whole waste of the nation's time, because she has not bothered to incorporate any stakeholders in this process. The stakeholders here are the NIA, the telcos, interest groups, even people in the digital space, in the private sector. Exactly. None of this was done. And then you get up one Sunday evening, come and tell us that there is an app that people should download, when the smartest thing that could have happened was to release the APIs that connect this app at the back end to the various telco companies for them to build or incorporate it in their own existing app platform. Because every SIM subscriber, if you use, especially if you use a feature phone or a smartphone, there's a place that you go, it's my MTN or my Airtel Tigo or my Vodafone. And they have a long menu of things you can do, right? Yeah. We've all used it on several occasions, right? This was a very nice situation where you say that you want to actually be seamless with the introduction of this technology. So regardless of whether you use an iOS phone, whether you use an Android phone, whether you use a Symbian phone, whether you use a YAM phone, then you can allow the telcos to seamlessly put their people in, where a simple thing could have been integrating it in their app menu, and then sending a text message with a link and say that use this link to verify your.
But she will say she's consulted the telcos. That's why there's a common platform. And we'll speak to Ken. Sorry.
Yes,
so when he joins, we'll talk about that.
Think that
what do you think the NIA? So two things. The NIA's original proposal was they were going to give you the devices that you'd verify, and therefore it's going to be a one-step process.
Yes.
Once you do it captures and verifies within the same period.
Instantly. Yes.
Now you have a two-step process. All that's going on is data capture.
Yes.
Now, what's going to happen when the verification is about to happen? You said Japanese versus Hebrew. Has the NCA been explicit about their concerns about this process?
I don't think the NCA has been very explicit.
So NIA. NIA.
Oh, yes, I think the NIA has done that. I mean, if you look at this letter dated 13 September 2021 by Dr. Atefua, he was very clear. In fact, in paragraph 1, he didn't mince words, he just went straight to the point. He said that the NIA does not have any input in the development of the said Android registration application. For this for this reason, NIA is unable to confirm that the biometric data to be collected by the NCA for the purpose described above, purpose being the biometric registration of SIM cards, will meet the standard to enable the successful verification against the NIS platform. And he's very right. You cannot magically, because you are a politician or because you're a minister, you cannot magically convert information stored in one computer format into another computer format. It will not work. Even the amount of artificial intelligence and computing power that it will take to translate all this information you are gathering. Note that we have gathered how many millions? 26 million? Yeah. And then there's a further 16 or so million.
Yeah. Second stage.
Look, it can't be done.
Let's talk to Kenneth Ashigbey. He's the one whose letter Mr. Atefa was responding to, and he's joined us via Zoom. Engineer, thanks for joining us. Good evening. Okay, he's not ready yet. Okay, he will join us.
Ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Ken, thank you for joining us. My first question is, okay, Maximus just told me that when I got my Ghana card, I give them my phone number. So there's no need for you for me to even go and queue and try and call. I mean, there's no need for SIM registration because as far as it's concerned, when we got our Ghana cards, we give our numbers. And that number can be our main number and we can just update. So if technology and common sense is to prevail, we oughtn't even have gone through this whole so-called SIM registration. This is his view. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think that's overly simplifying the situation and not considering the fact that when I went there and I gave that number, there was no way the person who was registering me could actually authenticate that number actually was for me. So that is something we didn't do at the beginning. But I hear him that we could have done that. We could have integrated all of that processes together at the beginning so that at the point where you actually were giving that number of yours, we could have validated that. But we should bear in mind that we're dealing with a SIM register that had issues with people who had pre-registered their SIMs, people who had used source documents that even a court of competent jurisdiction had said that was not good enough to be used to even register for the voters register. We were dealing with a database where you find out that police would arrest people and the driver's licenses they were holding where it's themselves, you had issues with their validity and all of that. So at the point where you're doing your registration of your SIM, there was no robust database on which, the person giving you the SIM card could validate that. When I said Kenneth Ashigbey was the person standing here, it was not Joyce Ashigbey, my sister, who was standing there. So that you could not.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, I remember in September last year, you wrote to NIA to clarify whether the data being collected in the SIM registration could interface the NIA database, and you got an answer. Has anything changed since? Because I've spoken to Professor Atefa, and I believe the position of the NIA is still the same, that they did not originate the data collection process and they have not authenticated its credibility, for want of a better word. So between that time and now, is it still the same position, Engineer Ken?
So I'm pretty sure that the two regulators would have to work together because currently that data is being collected and is stored at the NITA, and NIA has its database as well. At some point, the two institutions would have to find a way of synchronizing those two databases together. But you realize the fact that this is the telecom industry is a regulated industry, and we are regulated by the NCA, and the NCA is a sister parastatal with NIA. So I am pretty sure at some point that synchronization would have to be done between the NIA and the NCA in terms of the two databases that we have.
But from the... Okay, so just to be clear, the app that is collecting the fingerprints and the biometrics for the SIM registration, was it built by the telcos?
No, so this was built by the regulator. So the NCA built the platform that currently does the registration. So we all have the agents app, so all of us, all the telcos, all the BWAs are using this particular app, and that app collects the data, and the data is stored on the NITA, platform.
So should we take it that the data being captured now is going to be used to create a separate database until the NIA sort of integrates its data? Because NITA is also a state institution. But our understanding of the law in terms of the national identification system is that this is within the purview of the NIA. So is it that the NITA is creating a separate database using our SIM registration biometrics, which will then be integrated later, hopefully, with the NIA database?
So you see, the process it's in two parts. There's a first part of the process that, you do the 404. That process pulls data from the NIA. And that is what would actually verify you as who you are so far as your Ghana card is done, and then does the linkage. It's only at the bio capture stage that when the data is collected, it's not synchronized now immediately with the NIA. And the thinking through that is that is going to be done subsequently. So it's not as if you're building another database. It is the same NIA database that you've collected the data from, that you've collected this, and then in the near future, it will be synchronized. But this will be better answered by the NCA than by the
I know you're a regulated entity, so you have to be careful. But I have to be careful.
I just have to state what I know, and that's
I understand this. But because the original inquiry you made to NIA was the basis of the letter Professor Tefa wrote, it then suggests to me that the industry you represent is concerned that the data being collected has to end up somewhere, which is why you asked those specific questions of Professor Tefa. And therefore, his answers obviously must have meant something to you. So when he says that he does not know how the data is being collected, he cannot authenticate the process, and he is not sure if that data can be verified, that is obviously an answer your members are concerned about, because you are not just collecting data for collection's sake, right?
So Bernard, I wrote a letter. You've not read the letter I wrote. I don't know what.
No, he quoted your letter. He quoted aspects of your letter in his response.
I agree. I'm just saying that beyond that, there's been a lot of conversations that we've had with the NIA and with the NTA. The only thing is that it's privileged information. It's not information I'm going to divulge on the public platform. But as I say, I am definitely sure that what's going to happen is that the triangle currently starts from the NIA. That data is collected, and that's what is used in doing the same. Then the biometrics are collected, and the purpose of collecting them is to be able to synchronize them at a later date with the NIA database. I know, you read that letter from Prof. I'm sure when you interviewed Prof, stated that as well. But I'm pretty sure between the two regulators, they would find a way of dealing with that challenge.
Fair enough. The data Minister gave us suggests that there were 16 million unregistered SIMs as of stage 1 and 26 million as of stage 2. The deadline she's given is end of September, and then there's an app that's going to be launched on Tuesday. You're an engineer. You do your calculations and your projections. Will the 2 months be enough to finish 16 and 26 million?
So you see, good. It's good you raised that point. So when you look at those numbers, the total number of Ghanaians who are yet to receive their Ghana cards, which is if you take Ghanaians 15 years and above, is about 2.97 million. Mm-hmm. Then you have 808,000 or so who do not have cards printed, have not received them as of the last time I collected data. That brings us to about 3.781 million Ghanaians yet to receive their cards. If you divide that by 61 days and you divide that by the 275 plus the 16 district offices plus the 16 regional offices, the NIA should be doing about 165 registrations on a daily basis, Monday to Sundays. and is that impossible to do? Well, I'm not too sure.
There are four staff per center in the districts. So if you look at the pace at which they are registering, the 165 is very high. Because if you interview, when I interviewed Mr. Atefa, I got the impression that some of the places didn't have a lot of, in fact, some of the places were not even very secure. So until they do a mass registration, the daily registrations will not be enough to clear the almost 3 million backlog. That's what I got from the interview.
Yes, and so I was going to move on and say that for me, the same way that the politicians, when we have to elect them into office, would take registration not to the constituency but to the polling center, one of my recommendations would be to government, provide NIA extra resources such that they are able to deploy as close as possible to the citizens. Before this particular exercise, there was some survey that some of our members did, and about over 60% had complained that the reason why they have not registered was because the NIA offices were far away from their homes. But that's one part of the problem. Bernard, in the queue, the day that the minister was having going to do the announcement of the extension, there were a lot of people at the mobile, the telcos registration centers. As the minister announced it, people left the queues. If you go back today, the centers are completely empty. So we need to find a way in which Ghanaians who have the card, who might not have misplaced their cards, we find ways in which they are we get them to be able to go to the centers to register. And then we have to find ways in which those who do not have the cards, we provide them the cards. We need to work together with the NIA to ensure that our brothers and sisters who are physically challenged and who currently might have the Ghana card and are not able to be registered, we're able to register them. And it's important. On that particular day when we met the minister on Friday, before her announcement, she was the one who raised the issue of somebody who had petitioned her to say that he had an amputee written on his card and he could not register. So those, we need to find a way of sorting them out. There are some Ghanaians too who, about 250,000 of them, if they attempt to register now, their API gives them a response that data already sent. That one too, the telcos need to work together with the NIA to do the data reconciliation. That some also who, when they went to register, the app, was not available at them. So they did an offline registration. That to the telcos need to work with the NCA and its, application provider to be able to reconcile that. So that various things that we need to do to ensure that this is going to happen.
Thank you, Ken. We appreciate the intervention. Kenneth Ashigbey is the engineer. Kenneth Ashigbey is the CEO of the Chamber of Telecoms. We'll come back and wrap up. Stay with us on The Point of View.
And the thing is,
welcome back. So, Point of View tonight is trying to not just discuss the SIM re-registration deadline, but look at the broader implications. Don't forget, the main issue here is a national identification system that the NIA, by law, has to have. So whatever is happening with the NCA and the ministry, it's almost fair to say the NIA has the final say. If the NIA database cannot verify what we've given the NCA, there's no point in doing it, which is where we've got into. Engineer Ashigbey says the two institutions will resolve it. It's not in his mouth to say it. We're trying to see whether the deadline, September 30, will work. My panel does not think so. Mr. Ashigbey thinks so. We don't know what you think. So, Maximus, what's your final point on this whole discussion? So, where are we?
I think the 30th September deadline will not be met because of the backlog. And the issue is that we are not registering unique mobile subscribers. We are registering 42 million mobile subscriptions, SIM cards. We are not registering people, but SIM cards. So the time I spend on one SIM, if I go there with 5 TableNet and 4 SIM cards, it means you are going to spend the same number of minutes per SIM cards to capture everything physically. Like I said, if I registered only one number, I could just add the other numbers as my number. So you don't need to take my biometric data and everything all over again per SIM card. The issue of the app is not going to solve the problem. the issue of charging 5 cedis doesn't make sense, right? So the 30th September is going to come, and this problem will not be solved.
Selorm, what's your final comment?
So the Ministry of Communication, who is the policy owner of this particular activity, led by Honorable Ursula Owusu, would go into history as one of the most efficient ministers if 700,000 people per day can be registered as per the outstanding backlog between now and the 30th of September. And I can tell you it's impossible. That's the first thing. It's impossible, it's harebrained, it's not going to happen. Secondly, you are looking at a situation where even the app that is being used for this whole exercise is collecting data that cannot be used. So the main reason why we are undergoing this whole farce is going to end up with information that's garbage.
You are sure of this?
I'm sure of this. Anybody, you can ask anybody, anywhere who is a specialist in computer systems. We are collecting garbage that can be used by the NIA, period. Thirdly, we are sitting here, we've been imposed with a software for which there's a surcharge. If NCA is truly the owner and author of this software, where is NCA mandated as a statutory regulator to collect money from individuals to run an exercise that is compulsory? It is also inequitable that people will go and access this service for free and then now have to pay for it. Now, looking at the backlog of some 42 million plus SIMs that are left, and the fact that if people have the chance, they will download this software and run, let's even assume 50% of the people do that. That is 20 million, roughly. And they are paying 5 cedis. Which entity are they paying it to?
The company, according to
Why is the company running this service or make, so let's be very clear here, and it's very sad that the time is very short. For the same terms of reference, this app is supposed to register 42 million plus SIM subscribers. Now, with this same terms of reference, we are just increasing the number of end users for which this app is still supposed to reach the end game. And yet, because of the fact that we are now increasing the number of users, which really does not have any direct implication on the cost of running the app, we are now charging private citizens 5 cedis each to a total of 100 million Ghana cedis, which is going to go into some private companies' pockets. For what? Are we serious in this country if we don't begin to start looking at these questions? And to think that a minister is the architect of all of this and nobody seems or deems it right to question it, what ally and by what act of parliament was the minister, did the minister have the audacity to charge Ghanaian individuals to pay money to a private entity? Have we even begun to talk about that? These are the questions that we need to ask as citizens of this country and know whether we are being toyed with by somebody who does not know anything about digitalization but is still plunging her fingers and her toes and everything inside to make everybody's life hell in this country. Or we are ready to really toe a decent, sensible...
I'm sure you're using that figuratively.
Yes.
Let's be careful.
A decent, sensible, clear path towards aligning our digital identities with our daily lives.
Let me read a few comments before we end. Fidelis says, it marvels me how you're able to have an understanding of all these issues and ask relevant questions without confusing them. I'm proud of you. This is Fidelis. Good evening, Bernard and team. Do you know that NIA suspended issuing of Ghana cards for the past 2 months because they have no materials to print them? Instead of the government thinking about providing them with the needed materials for the continuous issuance of cards, they are rather interested in giving a deadline. The inconsistencies are too many. Good evening, Bernard. I bought my SIM card less than 5 cedis. Why should I register it more than the amount I bought? Ghana, the sinking ship. For one of John left after the minister's announcement because Ghanaians must work to put food on the table. That working time cannot be used to chase and exercise in futility. Papa Ike in Tema. And then there's a question. Good evening, Bernard. How has the COVID app performed till date? Please, the self-registration app would not wash. The minister should come again. Pasolo in Sunyani. And then finally, Bernard, I think you have a problem in this country. Why is it that the Ghanaian has to always struggle to get a service or product as a citizen? This way of doing things must stop. Can't we make things more flexible for ourselves? Those are your views. Thank you very much, Selorm Branttie, Vice President of Imani. Thank you very much, Maximus Ametorgoh, Technology Analyst, CEO of Pop Out. Thank you, Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbey. My name is Avle. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.